How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Eulier Gonzalez here. So I want to explore now is more about the objects and the Typescript docs as a way to understand all of these fundamentals. And because this spec is going to be updated frequently, I don't know the rate of it, but I can assure you that like any other spec, similar like the ECMAScript 262 or JavaScript or the CSS, which is made of several modules, or the ISO 9085-1, which is the SQL. So all of these specs, they're going to evolve over time. Those are mainly directed by a technical group, okay? And this is kind of the idea of this series of videos, and also to have a practical approach of how to do this kind of stuff, especially when is Typescript useful. And yeah, so to make a quick recap of how do I get here, well, first is, well, understand who made the Typescript, what was the initial code name of this, which is script, and that was developed originally by a Microsoft team, initially by one guy, and then from a bunch of Microsoft developers that have extensive experience working in compiling language like C#. And then they find themselves in the need to build applications in these things called JavaScript to provide now interactivity to the user, because there is, and they will be, might be, economic incentive of building this kind of products, especially when you now not only serve to a small set of people, right? But now you're serving at scale, worldwide. And here you come up with different challenge. So one of them is that how you can create now applications that are easy to maintain, to extend, and to refactor, right? So this is the deal of this, right? And well, how that actually fitting into the entire web development of writing applications using the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and what is the way to integrate that, and what is the things called Typescript, which is now a software that is going to run static analysis on your Typescript file, on this file that you define in this particular language. It doesn't change runtime behavior, and as you can see here, especially in the docs, right, part of the basics, it doesn't change the behavior. I don't know if that actually described here. Yeah, I was looking at this. Sorry about that. There was some info topics here. Exactly. Remember, type annotations never change the runtime behavior of your programs. Okay. So that's the whole premise of the Typescript. All right. And because, well, one of the things that I really appreciate for several folks out there, one of them is Matt Pocock, which is the founder, creator of this workshop series of Typescripts, and also from Josh Comeo, like from CSS and React, where, well, he now developed all of these notions in creating these interactive applications as these documents, so we can get a sense of how to build this kind of application at scale, and how you can provide value to your clients, because that's at the end of the day the reason of building that, or understanding the spec. So and then I look at the essential types and notations from the Webpack experience, which is, hey, do you know how to type in a primitive and also objects, how to do that for functions, which is now a special type of values in JavaScript, and as an object, how you typing is parameters, how you pass now optional parameters or required parameters, how you typing is some of the built-in data structure from the spec from JavaScript, like map and set, and some of the gotchas involved, how you can typing arrays as well as tuples, and now more involved into the web development. All right, so things like the so typing the callback functions or for event listener, for example, right? Or typing now promise, and typing now using is the functions built in JavaScript, like JSON parser. So that was a very nice way to put it, all of this stuff, because then I look at how to integrate that into your ID, right? So things like VS Code or Vim, in particularly, I'm going to use this VS Code for that, and I know there is a lot of folks out there that and with huge, or then it's not huge, is with reasons of why Vim is superior as a text editor in comparison with other ID, right? But in any case, use what works for you. That's all. And in my case, the VS Code. So how can we use now an extension that allows to run is this application, this server, to evaluate our Typescript codes anytime we make a modification. And not only that, is that this server, which is the Typescript compiler on watch mode, it also provides us some quick hints to fix common issues, which is something that is very convenient. And as I explore now the basics as well as the everyday types, we get a sense of that, and something that I'm going to definitely explore in today's video. And there's also some niceties, like for example, sometimes you need to have a node server running locally with Typescript. So how you can do that, and when you need to migrate, for example, certain scripts, there is also another particular library that is good also to go with. And then we have this notion of the union and narrowing, which is part of this, right? The narrowing. And this is interesting because it doesn't describe is the unions here, right? Narrowing more on functions, right? Object types, type manipulations, classes, and models. And that's interesting. What about in everyday types? Oh, is here. Okay, so things started to make sense here, which is on these everyday types, now linking with the course that Matt Pocock actually made, is this notion of the union and narrowing, right? Which is part of this. The union here and the narrowing. And it's this whole idea that because you want to extend the functionality of your systems to provide more features and niceties to your users. So you find yourself in expanding that and or to cover some of the particular use cases. So in Typescript, you can now have is or you can declare those extension of all of these types as unions, right? Where you describe an identifier to say, hey, this can be this or another one, or another one, or another one, or another one, right? So you have now the ability to describe what is the possible value that this variable can be at compile time, right? So you avoid an entire classes of errors, runtime errors. So this is the notion of this, right? And from that, right, I look at, well, how you now define this union, the notions of, especially when you're combining with type, of these umbrella terms that cover several typings, like any, which is an umbrella term for everything that can be possible, any possible types in JavaScript, and the narrowness along the way until you reach to the never, which is something that it will never return something here. And in the in-betweens, you have is some of the top type or top level types, primitive, to string, boolean, numbers, symbols, undefined and null, right? And also some additional types that are relevant, as you're describing in Typescript, like never, for example, or any, and the dangers of any, right? And then some of the user-defined types. So, for example, a common scenario is that sometimes you want to return from your web server a specific status code, right? Or to define what are the error codes or the success code. Sorry about that. So in those cases, well, it is useful for us to define now this variable that can be in all these possible cases. So an HTTP status code for success or for errors, right? And also is some now interesting things like how you can now narrow the scope or the types here. For example, mapping here to the docs, right? And here is when he decided to describe how you do that. So whether it is to, and here is when things get fussy, at least for me. But the key idea is that there's some special operators that you can allow you to extract or narrow the types, okay, using like type of for primitive or even objects, or if you want to check now a property on a object, okay, if you don't know what is the if you don't know what is the property is, but at some point you will know that you will have that eventually, using now the unknown types, and then now going with all of this series of if statements to narrow down the types. Also with switch statements, and with this union and narrowing, right? How to do that? For example, with this thing, let me see if they actually describe here. With discriminating unions, or in other words, is that sometimes you want to narrow your types is based on a possible values that happens on an object. So this is when I started to explore about that and some of these niceties when it comes to describing the how do you put it? This Typescript built-in types, right? For example, like return types, and something that we're gonna see that along the way. And this notion of the objects and mutability here, right? Which is part of these explorations of the object here. So what I want to do here, so something that they're describing here as the reference here, type inference, and so on and so forth, right? And then you have type manipulations for this. And then it's going to explore is about the classes and the models, all right? Is this notion of mutability, which is interesting that there is nothing related to that, or at least not here, right? So what I'm gonna do in the next, sorry for the noise, sorry. So what I'm gonna do here is in the next 16 minutes, right, is to look around of the first of the basic, right? It's to start from the scratch, all right? It's to start from the scratch until I reach to the narrowing and object types, which is the intention of today's video. So in the next 15 minutes, I want to walk through this, okay, and go as further as possible to expose myself to the docs or to the handbook, right? Got it. So about this book, over 20 years after its introduction to the programming community, JavaScript is one of the most widespread cross-platform language ever created. Starting as a small scripted language for adding trivial interactivity to web pages, JavaScript has grown to be a language of choice for both front-end and back-end applications of every size, because there is an economic incentive of building these apps, such as not only to share content like this kind of courses, right, but also is for e-commerce or for systems that allow you to manage your inventory, all right? So any SaaS applications or in the financial sectors, healthcare, logistic, even technology itself, education, and so on and so forth, right? So what? And don't forget that at the end of the day, this JavaScript is part of the way of adding interactivity to these documents known as the HTML, where this is how you can share now this structure documents over computers here. And the way to do that is using a protocol, an HTTP, where now those computers must have a system to describe how the transferring of the data happens across all of these different computers that are connected into this network known as the internet, where now it receives a huge amount of capital and interest from the military-industrial complex, especially the DARPA, as a response of what the Soviet Union did back in 1946 with the launch of the first satellites around the globe, right? So DARPA was created. So this is this kind of storytelling here as a way to, or this kind of backwards follow-ups is kind of interesting and revealing in terms of developing the understanding necessary to understand how do we get here and why you are getting paid for this, and why now there's a lot of kids and I was one of them. Perhaps I'm not that kid anymore, but the kids in these new generations, they're figuring out that there are ways to not only to earn money, but also to, well, do funny and interesting stuff here on these computers, right? So now they can exchange their service to other people that they might need it to. So this is it, okay? So while the size of scope and complexity of program reading in JavaScript has grown exponentially, the ability to JavaScript language to express the relationship between its different units of code has not. Combined with JavaScript rather peculiar runtime semantics, again, if you make a language in 10 days, there is so much that you can go far with. This mismatch between language and program's complexity has made JavaScript development a difficult task to manage at scale. So the most common kinds of errors that programmers write can be described as type errors. A certain kind of value was used where a different kind of value was expected because you can mutate that value. And this could be due to simple typos, one of them, a failure to understand the API surface of a library, and incorrect assumptions about runtime behaviors, usually is this, or other errors. The goal of TypeScript is to be a static type checker for JavaScript programs. In other words, tools that run before your code run static and ensure that the type of programs are correct. If you're coming to TypeScript without JavaScript background, with the intention of TypeScript being your first language, we recommend you first start reading the documentation on either Microsoft Learn JavaScript tutorial. That's interesting. So Microsoft, they have this. Microsoft for JavaScript developers, AI agent with MCP tools using LangChains. And you're starting to see as it is. Inside Microsoft Foundry. That's interesting. So yeah, right? So interesting. And there you go. Okay, so yeah, or read the JavaScript at the Mozilla Web Docs. If you have experience in other languages, you should be able to pick up JavaScript syntax quite quickly by reading the handbook. So how these handbooks are structured? The handbooks, oh my god, sorry about that noise. Alright, the handbook is split in two sections. So the TypeScript handbook is intended to be a comprehensive document that explains TypeScript to everyday programmers, and you can read the handbooks by going from top to bottom in the left-hand navigation. You should respect each chapter or page to provide with you a strong understanding of given concept. The TypeScript handbooks is not a complete language specification, but it's intended to be a comprehensible guide to all of the language features and behaviors. In here, features and behaviors. A reader who completes the walkthrough should be able to read and understand commonly used TypeScript syntax and patterns, explain the effects of important compiler options, and correctly predict Typesystem behaviors in most cases. In the interest of clarity and brevity, the main content of the handbook will not explore every edge case or minuity of the features being covered. So you can find more detail on particular concept in the reference articles, which is the reference section below the handbook. Is the navigation in the navigation is built to provide a richer understanding of how a particular part of JavaScript works. You can read it from top to bottom, but each section aims to provide a detailed explanation of a single concept, meaning there is no aim for continuity. So in other words, this reference is just explaining now is models, deeper explanation of simple concepts. Interesting. So this is the whole notion of reading the docs, right? It's like, what is the handbook and what is the reference file? It's explaining is the concepts here with deeper explanations. Utility type, cheat sheets, decorators, declaration margins, enums, iterators and generators, GSX, mixins, namespace, and models, symbols, triple slash directive, makes sense. Type compatibility, okay. And again, this is describing all of these features and behaviors in Typescript. Type inference, okay. Invariables declarations here. So if I go back here to this, this is non-goals. The handbook is also intended to be a consistent document that can be comfortable read in few hours. Certain topics won't be covered in order to keep things short. Specifically, the handbook does not fully introduce core JavaScript basics like functions, classes, and closures. When appropriate, we'll include links to background reading that you can use to read up those concepts. The handbook also isn't intended to be replacement for a language specification. Alright? In some cases, edge case or formal descriptions of behavior will be skipped in favor of high-level, easy-to-understand explanations. Instead, there are separate reference pages that more precisely and formally describe many aspects of the Typescript behavior. The reference pages are not intended for readers unfamiliar with Typescript, so they might use advanced terminology or reference topic you haven't read about yet. And finally, the handbook won't cover how Typescript interact with other tools, except where necessary. Topics like how to configure Typescript with Webpack, interesting. So this handbook doesn't tell us, and this is pretty descriptive here, Jesus, French, those guys. Doesn't tell you how to configure with Webpack, or Rollup, Parcel, React, Babel, Closure, Lerna, Rush, Bazel, Preact, Vue, Angular, Svelte, jQuery, Yarn, or NPM are out of the scope. You can find this resource elsewhere on the web. So this, for example, is for the web development loop, feedback loop. Or in other words, run a dev server, run an HMR, or these nice things to get hot model reload anytime that you modify a file, so that will automatically now refresh the browser. React for developing user interface, Babel to transpile code, Closure, don't know what it is. Learning is for managing multiple JavaScript projects. Rush, I don't know what Rush is. What in the French though is this? In the case of the web dev, you know? No, it's Rush, not Rush. Right? Rush. Leviathan that takes forever to build. Your app, single mono repo with all your stuff. Rush.io. The Rush different. Ready for large repos. Designed for large team. Reliable NPM instructions. Easy to administer. Who is running? Who is using Rush? Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's very. Oh, it's Microsoft. Okay. For running is this. Interesting. Rush provide an API, but this is welcome to Rush here. Make life easy for JavaScript developers who build and publish many npm package at once. If you're looking to consolidate all of your project into a single repo, you came to the right place. Rush is fast, professional solution for managing these scenarios. A single npm install in one step. Rush install all dependencies of your project into common folders. This algorithm support npm and yarn, automatically local linking, which is exactly what my main issue I currently have. Fast build, subset, cycling dependency. Okay. Exactly. If you are JavaScript developers who build and publish many npm package at once. Okay. Rush for library authors. For library and publish library authors and publishers. Bazel. I don't know what Bazel is. Okay, software that automates software build and tests. So you got now here Bazel. I think this is something from about Bazel. Okay, overview. Why Bazel? Build system basics. Fast and correct. The build foundation. Start enrolling founding members. Okay, Bazel. From startup to enterprise, choose a Bazel open source project to build and test your multiple language, multi-platform projects. Okay, multi-platform projects. Build better. Rebuild only what is necessary. Get fast incremental build with Bazel, advanced local and distribute caching. Optimize dependency analysis and parallel execution. Build and test using Java, C++, Go, Android, iOS, and many other language and platforms. Bazel runs on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So it's a way for build your application. Okay. Choose the Bazel open source project. Okay. So choose the Bazel open source project to build, test your multiple language here. Okay, so if you want to build and test your multi-platform projects here. Interesting. So you got now Rush, you got now this. Preact is for building user interface. Learner is for, let me actually handle this. But for web dev, right? Right, like learner, right? And this is interesting. So Webpack, and let's go to the basics, bro. Let's go to the basics, my friend. Let's go to the basics. Roll up, okay. All right. So roll up, parcel. Got it. We got parcel. Web dev. Right. Parcel. Yeah. Webpack roll up parcel. Babel closure. In web dev. Google closure tools, state management, data privacy, and this. Okay. Interesting. A closure compiler compiles JavaScript into compact, high-performance code. The compiler removes that code and rewrites and minimizes what's left, so it is done low and run quickly. So this is a compiler. Holy moly. Okay. Learner. Let me now sort this out real quick. So you got Webpack, Rollup, and Parcel, and then you have Learner. Modern build system for managing and publishing multiple JavaScript and Typescript package here. Okay. For publishing, managing and publishing. Okay. Managing and publishing package here. Interesting. And if speaking of that, is pretty similar to this, right? You have now Learner. You have now this. Rush Stack, mono repo for tool development by Rush Stack community, right? There you got it. Stay you there, and then you have now a build tool here. Let me go to GitHub, right? Like Bastel, right? It's reading heavily in Java. Okay. You have now Closure, all right? Then you have things like Vue, Angular, Svelte, jQuery, Yarn, NPMs, and out of the scope. So that'll be for today's video, and take care. Bye bye.